doctors have a
hmm
voice now. So a lot of things that doctors were complaining about have stopped. I think a lot of industry is looking at that. They're looking at seeing, hey, maybe we're not a competitive option for these doctors in our practice. What are other companies doing, and how can we up our game and be the preferred company for these ODs?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Ryan Reflects. My name is Dr. Ryan Corte, and today I'm here with Dr. Maria Sampalis, who rockstar OD, somebody who has a name that's been echoed throughout optometry for years. She's done a lot of incredible stuff in our profession. Maria, I'm excited to have you on the show. Welcome.
Yeah, honored to be here. And I've been following you over the years too. And I remember when I first started corporate optometry, you were one of the few that supported the group and came through. So I really do appreciate that. I always remember people that supported me at the beginning when the group was small and the concept was not popular.
Small but mighty, right? And over time, you've taken that and ran with it. And we're going to 100% get into the platform that you've built because you've done such an incredible job doing so. But for those who maybe don't know you, right? There might be a few that are listening in. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So Dr. Maria Sampalis graduated from NECO in '07. Practice in Rhode Island. Currently have 2 Irby subleases, a private practice, 2 daughters, married now. We've been together since '01, married since '08. So we've been together for a long time. And I can't say that I can done all this without the support of my husband over the years, with a lot of crazy ideas that I've had and things that I've tried over the years. So I've been very fortunate in that. And just over the years, trying different things. I mean, trying to take a different approach and what my thinking process was for what a successful career, what I wanted a successful career in optometry was. And honestly, it was about freedom to kind of come and go as I please, do what I like, try different things. And been doing this almost 20 years now, and would never have thought been this far, honestly. I tell doctors, anyone can kind of do it. It's just hard work, believing in yourself, and just continue to grind.
Well, you are the definition of continuing to grind and reinventing yourself over and over again. Was optometry something that you knew that in undergrad, this is what I'm doing? And what did that pathway look like? Where did you go to undergrad, optometry school?
Yeah, I look back over the years. I'm kind of a planner, and this is just not now how I planned it. Right, I was going to go to Providence College. I was going to apply early admission, pre-med. I got in, and then I also applied to Northeastern University in Boston, and just had a discussion with my parents, and they're like, "You should go to Boston for school." So I ended up going to Northeastern. Finished early. I finished actually the bio degree in about 2.5 years. Did that knowing I wanted to get out and go to school. And I was looking to go into a different profession. And one of my classmates was saying I was going to look for optometry. And I had come home that summer and shadowed my optometrist and really liked it. I liked the fact that they had their own business. Again, the freedom thing, like you can come and go, pick that. It is a lot of work to do your own thing, but that was what I liked. And then looking back at that time, I only applied to one optometry school. I applied to NECO. And looking
Just
back,
one.
I'm like, fun. And I'm like, how stupid was that? Again, there's a lot of things over the years. I'm like, what was I thinking? And, I was fortunate I got in and I loved it. I mean, I was in Boston before, so I stayed in Boston. My husband now was there, so that's where I wanted to be, in Boston. And NECO was a great school. I learned a lot. I got a great education. Now what's going on with the national board and things like that. Very fortunate to look back that we had a great education to pass boards right away. I think everyone was always nervous, right? You always doubt, you second guess yourself and things like
Yeah.
that. I've been fortunate for that, and knew that I was going to come back, right, to Rhode Island. I was going to open my own practice. So I would study all the time because I was like, I have to know everything because I'm going to have my own practice. I'm going to have my own business. And I have to know everything. And now fast forward 20 years. I mean, you're still learning, right? You're still learning, and it's good to
All
get
the time.
ideas. Right. So we're not all practicing on an island, but
Well,
that
you're
was
practicing
how,
on Rhode Island, right?
yeah, that was how, yeah, yeah. And that's how it kind of came about. A lot of things over the years have been, kind of by accident, whatever you think your path's going to be. But, sometimes there's others others that open paths for you, or, plans that are already set for you. So I think a lot of doctors can plan what they want. A lot of want to go in, open their own practice. Some want to go into corporate. Some want to buy, work in a hospital setting. And you change over the years. I mean, you don't want the same things as when I first came out of school, right? So things can change.
Well, I think you nailed it in regard to when you kind of hit a fork in the road. You can go left, you can go right, but things tend to work themselves out. So you had reference, you were actually looking at a different profession. That was a fork in the road. What profession were you looking into out of curiosity?
I was looking into dentistry. That's what I was
No
looking at.
kidding.
Totally different. Yeah. Yeah.
And so you did some shadowing and et cetera over time. This was the pathway for you.
Yeah. And I've been very fortunate. I really do like my job. I mean, I had a great day today at the office. It'll make a difference in people's lives. And, it feels like you don't worry. You just, you get to know your patients. You sit there and chit chat, and the day goes by. You provide good care, make good living. It's
Absolutely.
pleasant. It's clean. It's great. I mean, it's a lot of things have changed. I know that, things are changing. So trying to get more education, go to these conferences has been a game changer for me too, because I'm going to these conferences, meeting all these great doctors, these industry leaders. And I'm like, what can I bring back to my practice? What are they doing? So just dry eye is what interests me to incorporate into my practice.
Well, yeah, things are constantly changing. And you and I were just talking prior to hitting record. I went to Expo, you went to Seco. What are some of the biggest takeaways that you took from just this year's meeting of all of the constant changes that are taking place?
Yeah, you get to, when you go to conferences, you get to meet a lot of people, right? I sat next, sat next to a breakfast time at Seco, next to a young OD, and they're from Alabama, and you get to see what's practice in Alabama, and get to hear what their practice modes are, what their frustrations are, what they perceive things. And you get to network with a lot of other doctors and kind of give your 2 cents advice. A lot of them ask me for advice, and I tell them, I said, you just message me. I'll help you. I get on the phone with you. It's not a big deal. It's, when you want to, do dry eye, if you want to look at a sublease, you want to buy a practice, there's a lot of resources out there, but sometimes it's just talking to someone that's done it, right? It isn't looking to profit off the conversation per se.
And you are 100% true to what you said. I've messaged you many times, just asking questions like, hey, Maria, what do you think about this or that? And super accessible, right? I send you a message on Facebook. You already run a massive forum on there as it is in a community, and we're going to get into that. But you kind of practice what you preach. And that's something I really appreciate about you. You are authentic in that regard. But let's talk about corporate optometry on Facebook. So when did that idea kind of first hit you? And where did it go from there?
Started 11 years ago is how it started. I didn't find any information. I was at Sears Optical at the time, and there wasn't a lot of information out there. And you're getting information from regional managers, store managers, and it's kind of the same thing. Even now, fast forward, same, talk and whatever for your practice. But I wanted to talk to other ODs. So it's been great to be able to, network with other docs. And I've learned so much too with, other subleases that I'm not familiar with, and other doctors that work at other brands. And I was more closed-minded on, again, having your own business, sublease, things like that. And over the years, doctors are like, hey, I like going in. I like seeing patients, and that's it. My eye doctor, America's Best, they're all employed, and the doctors like it. They go in, they see their patients, they go home. They don't have to worry about anything else. And maybe that's something later on in the future. I mean, I guess as you slow down, but for me, that's what it would be. But, it's good to see their perspective and talk to them too, as, an employed option was good for their family, and they didn't have to balance too much. They go home, they take care of their kids, where sometimes I go home and I have to do billing, strategy, shoot emails, things like that. But I wouldn't have it any other way. It's got to be busy, because if I'm not busy, I don't know what to do with myself.
But you said 11 years ago, and you mentioned early on in just our discussion, your husband has kind of been your rock in all of this. So did you bring the idea up to him? Did you just start the page and then be like, hey, honey, I'm doing this, and it's picking up some steam? Like, what did that look like?
No, it's kind of like everything else. I just jump in and then tell him. So, hey, by the way, and then any other typical wife, right? Be like, oh, sometimes it's part of, he's part of the idea, or he asked for permission, but you already did it. So it's things like that.
Yeah, my wife gave me the green light to do the podcast because I'm already, probably a little bit overextended as it is. But at times, when you're passionate about something and it's clear that you were passionate about this, things take off, right? You just got to put in the time, the energy, and the effort. And there's a huge opportunity to find something within our profession that can evolve and be a valuable tool or resource. And so you launched this, and over the 11 years that you've launched it, you've seen a lot of evolution and change. What are like just a few of the biggest things that you've seen? You said some things have stayed the same in regard to maybe just talking to any leadership in corporate, but what are some things that have really truly evolved since you've launched the group?
Yeah, just for ODs, right? Doctors have a
Mm-hmm.
voice now. So a lot of things that doctors were complaining about have stopped, right? I think it is a voice where doctors can, complain or set change in an organization. And I think a lot of industry is looking at that. They're looking at seeing, hey, maybe we're not a competitive option for these doctors in our practice. What are other companies doing, and how can we up our game and be the preferred company for these ODs? I mean, right now there's a shortage of doctors, and a lot of companies have stepped up their game to do that. So I think it's been that as well. And industry, I think does look at it. I think they see it as good feedback to see if they're not doing something that they think they are. I think it's a good pulse for the industry as well. And doctors of sublease, doctors that left for whatever reason, I think they can voice their opinion instead of getting information from store managers or regional managers like they used to before.
So really anything that was almost like you felt like you were in your own silo, working either subleasing alongside a corporation or being employed by them, you now feel that that conversation has evolved and changed.
It's evolved and changed. And, I've learned a lot too over the years on how to incorporate things in my sublease and then we've kind of, I think, broken some myths in the industry too or I'll go to conferences, I'll be in some ad boards and, there'll be some, KOLs that will make, assumptions about corporate optometry. And I've been there and then some other doctors. So I'm like, well, no, that's not how it works. Doctors can practice medical. A lot of them have dry eye centers, VT, they practice full scope. It just depends on the doctor, right? And I think that's changed too on the image of it as well over the years. And it's not me, it's the members in the group that post, right? It's doctors that are, having those conversations. And it's getting more light. So when things come up and they talk about settings, they also talk about that setting as well, which has been great to see. The group has made the change. It's not me, it's the group, it's the members, the people that are engaged in it. So, the group is not what it would be if without its members, right? It's been good to see that.
Well, I love to see the voice has evolved and changed. And one thing I bring up a lot on this podcast is I'm pro optometry. As long as you're taking care of the patient, you're doing right by the patient's eye health and vision care needs, we're in good shape, right? So I don't care what modality you practice, whether you're an owner, whether you're an employee, whether what system you're affiliated with, as long as you're taking care of the patient. And you had referenced that there are a lot of doctors that are super happy working for corporate optometry or a corporation and they're an employee. But guess what? There's also doctors that are super happy working as an employee in a private office.
Yes.
There's a ton of similarities and honestly, there's some differences, but a lot of times these corporations may provide, as you referenced, a stronger compensation and benefit and bonus package plus medical. And that's hard for private practices to compete at times. What does that look like in regard to some of the offers that you're seeing being extended out to corporations versus maybe even 10 years ago? How has that evolved?
Oh, that's definitely evolved. That's one of the things that we kind of made transparent with the group. Doctors message me to kind of review. I'm not a lawyer, but I could be like, I think you're getting a good package. You're not getting a good package. It's been nice to kind of help them strategically negotiate. And they've been they've been able to sign because of it and be able to help doctors. So that's been great. And the group's been transparent too, where doctors can post those things. And it's been a good resource where other doctors have gone back to see it and things have changed too. And I think, it also brings back the fact that some of these companies can look at that too and say, we need to get better packages. Or now maybe doctors don't have to work every Saturday. Let's present that option, that work-life balance. So that's been good too because of the group. And it's the information that the doctors provide. But a lot of doctors have trusted me over the years on information like that, where I'm able to review it to get some information and then I can help other doctors. And any conversation that we have with doctors is always confidential. whether it's on income, whether it's an issue at a sublease, something going on. And I pride myself on that, people can trust me in the industry, because having your colleagues trust you and respect you is a huge honor.
Percent. I mean, you wouldn't put together a platform that is successful if you start throwing people under the bus, right? That would quickly erode everybody's trust, the corporations, the doctors. It doesn't make sense to go that route. So when you...
The group has always been pro-doc. It's always been about the doctor in the setting.
Mm-hmm.
It's been about that. I think that's why I appreciate that. That's why it has grown, because it's been authentic over the years for the doctors.
So when you launched this 11 years ago, you were at a Sears sublease. There are no more Sears subleases in the country. What did your journey to that point look like? And then how did you get to where you are now with 2 Warby Parker subleases and then a private office? Like, what did that look like?
The last 11 years, crazy, right? So I was pregnant when I took over the Sears. I took the sublease. Nobody kind of really wanted the sublease. The talk in the industry was going on business, things like that. But I was like, hey, I want to have my business. This is like a chance, right? But people are like, well, I would have waited for after. I was like, no, right now, now's the chance. So I took it.
Were you employed? Right? Were you employed prior to that, or what were you
doing
before that?
I was employed, and I hated it. I just hated it. I went to, and I'll tell you what happened after this. And people look at me and they like, she must be nuts. She must be crazy. So I took it. I was pregnant. And then I took it over December. And then in May, I gave birth, came back after 8 weeks or whatever, but learned so much, right? And it wasn't super busy. I did a lot by myself, but learned how to do that. And again, information. And that's where corporate optometry started. It was over there at Sears. It was there, right? So I had some extra time, and what else can I do with my time? And think. So that was how it all started, and I did well, and I learned, met a lot of great people, a lot of doctors, and it was great at the time, right? Because it wasn't super busy, but I had a newborn, a 2-year-old. It was again started right, and it was a lot, but it was perfect because it wasn't crazy busy, but still did very well. The net income in corporate optometry is very good because it's not a lot of overhead. Right. Mm-hmm. And we had established patient base. There was a doctor there before. And my office was actually downstairs and the optical was on the 2nd floor. So I had, so it was a little disconnect. It's how it was in Rhode Island, separate, but how it, I guess they moved the optical upstairs over time and kept the doctor downstairs, which was totally different, and did it. And so there'd be times that I would do it all by myself, at the beginning. No tech, nothing. So started it and did it. And then over time grew it, did fairly well. And then, started corporate optometry, started to do that, saw that there was interest in it, built it from there. But then fast forward, they closed, right? And at that point, there was no other sublease at that point with Luxottica. And, they said, we can get you a job working for this doctor. And so I talked to the doctor, and he said to me, now imagine, there's nothing closed, right? And it's closing. And he said to me, because I think they gave me like 60 days. And they said to me, well, we have to talk to this doctor. He can give you a job. And so I talked to him, and he said, and this is back in 2017. He said, we'll pay you $1,000 a day. You come work for me. And that was a lot of money, at that point. They weren't paying that. And I said to him, no, this is it. I said, if I'm just going to do it myself. So I opened like a cold start. Well, we move the patients. We'll open a new practice, like a mile down the street, 30 days. Open a new private practice down the street in 30 days. Move the patient. I got lucky because I found space. I got lucky.
Holy cow.
Yeah, look back and I'm like, how crazy was that again? I mean, again, young and stupid. Who turns down $1,000 a day to open up, cold? So I did that. I said, now's the time, right? I mean, if this is what I want to see, what the case, and then build a lot of confidence from it, right? And you don't need a lot of money to open cold per se, is what I tell doctors, right? I mean, the amount that I did it, I didn't need to take a loan to move it in 30 days, 60 days, whatever the time that I needed. You have to cash. You can't get a loan that fast, right?
No way.
So that's what I tell doctors. You can do it affordable. So I did that. And yeah, it was hard at first, right? But you build so much confidence, and then you realize, the doctor has a lot of pull on, some of the subleases as well. Patients do come to you, do want to see you. You grow the business as well. There's misconceptions that they come for the glasses and the optical, but they come for the doctor over time, and did that. And I did that for a few years and always did fill in and things like that and did fine. And then fast forward, COVID came, right? So COVID comes, COVID, we shut down. And then I'm like, this is the first time in a long time that I actually get like 3 months off. Where, I mean, no one's going anywhere, right? So
All of us. Yeah.
yeah, someone take some time off. So it's kind of nice, right? I think homeschooling was much harder than, doing all this stuff. I'll tell you that. But a doctor called me and said he wanted to sell his practice. So I went over there and it was an opportunity. Again, I needed work, but I saw the opportunity and what it could be. And it's been great. I mean, it's built up. And then, because of reputation industry, going to conferences, talking to people, Warby had called and said, we're looking to open a location. Are you interested? So, they were very easy on the terms and working with them as long as I could, keep my practice. Because now I bought a practice and had invested a lot in that because I had bought the building, had to remodel, had to do all these things. So, but they were very flexible. And I've been with them for about 4 years now and have another sublease with them and, hire doctors. It is kind of tough to be able to, retain. But, there are times I have to work 6 days a week between the few, and that's fine. Happy to work. There's an opportunity, and it's just been a different journey than everyone else, honestly, how it's been. But it's I wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, I learn so much every time that I do it.
Maria, you turned down $1,000 a day, which is, I mean, you were betting on yourself. You're like, I'm an entrepreneur. I want to grow up my own business. But
Yeah.
that, I think a lot of people would think twice, especially coming out of that situation where you got shut down on, an entity that just closed all of their operations. So you turn that down, you start your own private office. Then COVID hits. Did you shut down that private office,
Oh,
or
yeah.
did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
'Cause
No, we
at that,
we shut down because we can't open, right? But I'm like, 3 months off. That's not, I mean, whatever time off. I mean, so.
but then did you reopen it after that, or did you just
Oh,
pivot everything over to the other location? So then
no,
you have
no.
two.
So the practice that I opened cold, we opened in COVID, I think was it April or May when we came
Mhm.
back. And then the doctor called me in August that he wanted to sell. So it was pretty
Okay.
close. So we ended up just moving everything over there to that
Okay.
location. So yeah, I mean, it was a good learning experience to do that. Again, COVID was that time where everyone was nervous about doing anything.
Oh yeah.
Again, I was like, it's an opportunity. And he wanted out, and I had the confidence to do that. The doctor did not stay on board. I said, I know they talk about goodwill and things like that. I said, you don't need to stay on. I got it. So you can go retire.
Well, you put together the community. You showed up to the conferences. You put in the energy, the effort. Good things come to those who are patient and put in time, energy, and effort. And you have done all of those things. So then if you were a newer graduate, Maria, or maybe you're an optometry student and you're evaluating all of your options on the table, private practice, working at a VA, working as an employed doctor, doesn't matter the setting, taking a sublease, what would you tell them?
I say, see what you like, and then try different things. Continue to try different things. I've worked in a lot of different settings over the years: health center, college, private practice. I mean, I worked in a lot of different settings. At first, when I first came out of school, even though, I liked the VA. I really liked it. It was a lot of disease. You wanted to help those patients. They serve the country. And I wanted to work. I just didn't have a opportunity. But fast forward now, I'm like, this is where I'm supposed to be. Right. And I like that. I can, again, the freedom, I can come and go as I please, it's been great in that aspect. And, I can have my kids are older now, but I've had my kids in the office over the years, and I can do that. And I have stories of them embarrassing me in front of patients. It's always the new patients that come in. But they're older now, so I can have them in the office. And I just started having my 13-year-old work front desk, and she's killing it. She does a great job. So it's nice to have that and do that. And, flexible in how I want to work. So I've been very fortunate to be on different advisory boards and be on these things to help, be part of the change in our profession and those things. So if you don't have your own, it's hard to balance out the schedule, right? Like tomorrow I have a few things we're doing, but I can block off my schedule to do that. to give back to the profession, to volunteer, to be involved. It's exciting to see like behind the scenes stuff on how a lot of doctors do all this work for our profession, and to know, hey, they did that, and that was my idea. That's great.
Where do you see this profession going, just based on the last 20 years of being in practice, now being kind of on the inside, working with industry advisory boards, kind of having that inside perspective and scoop?
Yeah.
Like, where do you see the next 5, 10, 15 years of optometry, especially with the current doctor shortage?
Yeah. Well, I think we're going to see more optometry schools. I think that's a strategy to get more students out. I think we're going to see more of a change towards employed optometry. A lot of young doctors want to be employed. I think there's going to be more of a mix. I think sooner or later, probably it is, I think, more employed now. They're independent than before. And I think it's because, private equity selling, doctors selling to private equity, doctors having big student loans, and a lot of the work to do it. It is not easy to have your own practice. It's not easy to manage a sublease, to manage employees turnover and things like that. You have to want it. You have to want it. You have to want to work for it. You have to continue. You can't put your guard down. You're kind of always thinking about it in the back of your mind,
Always.
right? But you have to want it. Yeah, I like it. That's what I wanted to do. I've done it, and I've been very fortunate. We're able to support my family and whatever my kids need. We can do that. Optometry is a great profession like that. I've never, we have high student loans, we have things like that, but I haven't seen optometrists go bankrupt, right? I mean, there's plenty of opportunity. And I think there will be new organizations coming out, and opening stores, and changes, consolidation in the industry. We'll see a lot more innovation because of it, right? I think AI will change things, how we see things. And there's remote care. That's a new setting that some doctors like to do that. And I think that at the end of my career, I'm like, I want to be on the beach doing remote care, right? At the end. Right now.
Isn't that a dream? Yeah.
I want a dream, right? So, but I think there's a lot of different things that we can all do in the future and change. I mean, you can do industry and optometry. And I've seen doctors exit out of that as well. But I think we're going to see a big shift in innovation. I think doctors will start to do more of the dry eye, myopia management. We'll see a lot of AI helping our practices, and maybe helping in decision making too, on diagnoses, as we become more of the medical care for eye care, as maybe if there's not a lot of ophthalmology in the future.
It's funny you reference that. I have some really good local colleagues that are ophthalmologists in my area, and they're seeing it like crazy. They're seeing more and more patients. We're like, I want all these patients managed by optometry because I want to do surgery. And we have maybe 1,000 ophthalmologists right now is the number that are retiring each year, and about 500 coming out. There's going to be a shift in that paradigm, and it's going to be really interesting to see how we as optometry can step up to the plate and serve the eye health and vision care needs of the public to the highest level, and work together with ophthalmology. So I'm with you on that.
Of course, yeah.
All right. Well, one final thought for everybody who's tuned in. What is a key piece of advice or takeaway for anybody listening, especially maybe that's just struggling in their career path, or maybe they're just trying to get going? What is something that you would tell them about the journey?
Yeah, it's not a destination, it's the journey, right? And that's what I think I've learned with myself over the years too, kind of get to the destination and be like, what's next, right? But enjoy the journey. It's part of your career path. There'll be ups and downs, and you learn a lot. And sometimes it's okay to slow down in the journey too. It doesn't have to be fast. And it's great to see doctors over the years become key opinion leaders, friends over the years, and doctors shine. I think that's what the platform has done. I think like this podcast too, you're highlighting a lot of doctors. It's nice. I've done that on my podcast too, and it's nice to do that, to give back. And I think that those are things that doctors can listen into and learn from. But the journey is all about yourself, what you want it to be. You don't need to copy someone else's journey, where they got. Everyone's journey is going to be a little different, and mine's been different, and I didn't need to follow anyone. This is what I thought I needed to be, what I wanted to do. And my level of definition of success was a lot different than a lot of other people's. So I've been very fortunate to to be able to have accomplished what I've wanted to accomplish in optometry at this point.
Well, you've done an incredible job, and shout out to all that you're doing. Corporate Optometry on Facebook, the Corporate Optometry podcast, wearing many different hats in all the different advisory boards and consulting roles that you have. For those who want to connect further with you, and I know that you're accessible in a number of different ways, what is your preferred way for them to reach out to you?
Same way it's always been. PM me on Facebook.
PM her on Facebook, and I can guarantee you she will get back to you quickly. Maria, thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate you being on the podcast. I appreciate all that you're doing for our profession at large, corporate optometry, corporate affiliated optometry. And just want to tell everybody who's listening in, make sure you like, subscribe, and share this episode with a friend. And stay tuned for my next podcast where we can reflect and grow stronger together.